Hey guys, another week, another game dev vlog, and this has been a very strange week. I started off working on Everybody at its Universe, implementing chat into the game. It doesn't have the chat bubbles, and there's still a little functionality that needs worked out to make sure it's as easy to use as possible, but the basic functionality is there, and that's about it. After that, I was working on trying to figure out some other stuff to do with the back end of Everybody at its Universe, particularly about creating the control panel we're going to be using to control everything. I'm figuring that out, exploring different options for how we're going to approach that. I was looking into different options with Node.js, but that might just be jumping a little too far out of what I know much about. But then again, the other option that I was seeing that would make the most sense would be something using ASP.NET Core MVC stuff. But again, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't done with that either. So yeah, I was definitely getting a bit overwhelmed with just all the new stuff that I need to learn for this. A lot of the stuff I'm doing in Everybody at its Universe is stuff that I've absolutely never done before, but I've kind of known of, so it's not completely foreign. But I think we will be able to break through this and we will get making progress. It's just that I did not make much more progress than that this week on Everybody at its Universe. Now, where things get interesting this week is that, well, there were some sales on some of the computer components I was looking at. There were two different CPUs I was looking at in particular. The Ryzen 2600, which is the current generation lower mid-tier CPU from AMD, available for $150, $160 depending where you get it, or the previous generation 1600, which has been on sale recently because it's previous generation, not to mention the third generation is coming out within the next few months most likely. But what especially caught my attention was that the 1600 became available for $80, and at that kind of discount it's worth the slight downgrade in performance from the next generation. But anyway, I went ahead and went over to Micro Center and picked up all the parts for my PC build. Now everything went pretty smoothly, got just about everything that I needed, but the case was the tricky part. So their system said they had one in stock, but they could not find it anywhere in the store or in the back. So they went ahead and offered the display unit at a discount. They had recently just gotten it out, so it was in great condition. So once we got back, started thinking and realized it actually made sense for Alex to go ahead and get some of the parts for his build when he's going to be doing that in the next couple months. So the next day we ended up going back over there, picking up the stuff for him, and I went ahead and picked up an extra fan for my build. And then Saturday, yesterday, we went ahead and started the build process. So we started with Alex's build, just getting everything together and borrowing the power supply and graphics card from my build to stick in there to make sure everything was functioning as intended, and then booted into a mem test just to make sure the RAM was all functioning correctly. So while that was finishing running, I got started on getting mine together, started with the case fans and getting the standoffs in, getting the motherboard out, CPU installed, cooler onto the CPU, RAM into the motherboard into the case after installing the I/O shield, and then starting to get everything else in with the power supply, the front panel I/O all connected to the motherboard, and getting the graphics card in and all the cables routed, as well as of course getting my SSD installed. Overall, very impressed with the performance of everything. It's definitely my first time using a system that's that fast, because the fastest system I've used up until this point is my laptop. But anyway, I went ahead and tested a few games on the system. First of all, I let my younger brother Jason run Kerbal Space Program with a few graphical mods to really push the system. Overall, it handled it just fine. There were a few points when it drops a few frames, especially lag spikes loading some more terrain, and then of course when getting really graphically intensive with the atmospheric scattering and more clouds and more ground detail objects like trees and stuff. It does push it a fair bit, but it still handles it fairly well. Another game that I tested was Overgrowth. It's kind of a parkour / stealth combat kind of game. It's an indie game that I was following in development years ago, but I actually bought that a few days ago as part of a Humble Bundle in order to be able to test this out, not spend a whole lot doing so, because obviously I'm not making a huge amount of money right now, so spending money on games is something I try to avoid, but investing a little bit in something that's nice, not to mention to test the system, I'm definitely fine with. So I definitely do like the game, and it runs very well on the system. I ran max settings pretty much, and it runs just fine most of the time. There's a couple points with a lot of detail meshes of the grass and other layers adding up that I noticed a little drop in performance, but overall runs perfectly fine, highest settings, 1080p. Now I haven't gone in and overclocked the CPU just yet. I'd like to make sure everything's running stable first before playing with that. Obviously overclocking does void the warranty, but once you know that everything's working and stable with the CPU, it's not really that big of a deal. So I'll be looking into that soon enough. But overall, the system's pretty much ready to go. I'll be getting it moved over here to my desk, but it's going to be a little awkward at first because I need to figure out how I'm going to be sorting out my files, like what files I want where off my laptop, and then what files do I need to access from both. I'll probably be doing it bit by bit, maybe each weekend. But overall, very happy with the build, and yeah, I did not expect to be working on this at the beginning of the week. So yeah, I guess that is going to have to be it for today. So as always, I do thank my contributors over on Patreon. It is definitely a huge help. So if you want to check out my Patreon page for yourself, the link is down in the description below. And of course, I want to thank everybody at its patrons as well. So yeah, I'll see you around. Goodbye.